Excuse the wet hair, I just got out of the shower and quickly need to film this video before Josh and Yuma get back. I've been meaning to film this video for a while because I have been getting a lot of questions through Instagram asking me how I felt right after my embryo transfer, especially those 10 days right after the transfer when I was waiting for my pregnancy results. So I'm here to share with you how I felt right after my embryo transfer. This video is going to be short and sweet because quite frankly, I basically had no symptoms, but I will tell you kind of how I felt throughout those 10 days as much as I can. For those of you who just had an embryo transfer or are looking at an embryo transfer soon and you haven't checked out my video I did a few weeks ago on how I took care of myself after my embryo transfer, go check that video out because I went into full detail about how I took care of myself right after my embryo transfer, how I dealt with that 10-day waiting period for my pregnancy results, because honestly, that was probably the hardest part of IVF for me. My entire IVF journey was pretty difficult, but those 10 days were probably the worst part of it all. So I'll link that video down below, how I took care of myself post embryo transfer, and today I am proudly 24 weeks and 3 days. So far so good. I just had my fetal echocardiogram on Monday, so a couple days ago, and I want to share with you guys how that went. So I'll share with you guys all of the details behind that at the end of this video, but first let's dive into how I felt right after my embryo transfer and what symptoms I had. For those of you who are brand new here, welcome. I upload 1 to 2 videos a week all about living healthy, and this past year has all been IVF, so I am so proud and happy to share my IVF journey with you guys. All right, let's quickly dive into what little symptoms that I had. Some of you guys already know what I'm about to say because you have reached out through Instagram and DM me what symptoms I had after my embryo transfer, and I was very honest and I was like, I really had none. So here we go. I'll start from the very beginning. My embryo transfer was so great. It was painless. I really felt nothing. All I felt was kind of the probe going up my vagina, and that's about it. So I didn't even feel my doctor releasing the embryo at all. So it was very painless. It was a magical experience, as a lot of you know. I'll also link my transfer day video down below because I did vlog the whole thing. But yeah, I didn't really feel much at all during the embryo transfer. And then right after the embryo transfer, I did acupuncture for an hour. That was the first symptom I felt, was that first hour after my embryo transfer. And for those of you who don't know, I had a frozen embryo transfer, not a fresh one. So I don't know if there would be a difference with fresh versus frozen, but I did have acupuncture right after my embryo transfer. So I literally had the transfer and then went downstairs to my acupuncturist and laid on the acupuncture table for an hour while she put the needles in me and relaxed for 45 minutes as the needles did their work. So because I was laying still right after the embryo transfer and I was just thinking about the transfer and I was thinking about how great it was, I don't know if I would have felt this if I was moving around right after my transfer, but because I was staying completely still and I was flat on my back, I felt this little twinge. That's really the only way I can describe what I felt. It wasn't a cramp, it wasn't painful, it wasn't anything uncomfortable. It was just a little twinge or maybe like a tiny little spasm, but I don't know that I would have noticed it if I wasn't laying down and being still. And it was right in the center, right where my uterus is. I was like, whoa, what was that? And it really was a split second, it was gone. So I was like, well, maybe that was the embryo attaching into the uterus. I don't know, and maybe it was nothing. I don't know what it was, but that was the first symptom I had. Then acupuncture session ended, I left, we drove home. I ate some chocolate on the way home because Josh bought that for me while he was waiting for my acupuncture to be done. And that was the first meal or snack that my embryo had, was chocolate, which is so funny because that predicted my pregnancy because all I want is sweets. This entire pregnancy has been me just trying to control my sweet cravings. It's just been pretty unreal and pretty obnoxious because those of you who know me from before know that like I was always low carb, gluten-free, dairy-free, and now I'm all about all that stuff now. So it's like, pregnancy does weird things to you, I'm telling you. And then that was it. I had salmon for dinner that night because I wanted some good protein and omega-3s in my system for the embryo. And then the next day, because I'm a landlord, we had a family moving out of one of our units and we had to clean that and get ready for the travel nurse moving in a few days, which if you guys watched my how I took care of myself after my frozen embryo transfer, know the whole story behind that. I did not rest. I did not like put my feet up for the rest of the weekend because I had my embryo transfer on Friday. So the next day was Saturday and I had to go to work with my husband, washing baseboards, scrubbing walls because this family that was in this unit just left it a disaster. So the entire weekend I was on my feet, moving furniture, getting the unit ready for the travel nurse moving in. So yeah, that kind of worried me because a lot of people were telling me to be on not bed rest, but like rest, watch TV all weekend, like, you know, kick your feet up, relax. I did none of that. And in that video that I'll link down below of how I took care of myself post embryo transfer, I went into detail about how it's actually discouraged to be on bed rest. You don't want to be on bed rest. It actually makes the whole situation worse because it lets your mind wander because you don't have anything to do and you're just like laying there. And honestly, this 10-day waiting period is so mental, it's ridiculous. So keeping your mind healthy is really the key in getting through those 10 days. So I kept busy, and I had to keep busy, number one. Number two, I did keep busy on purpose during those 10 days because I knew that my mind was gonna be constantly thinking about the embryo transfer and if I was pregnant or not. So yeah, I did not rest. So I had lots of energy during those 10 days. I did not work out. That was the only thing I did differently. Was, you guys know I work out regularly pretty much every day, and I just didn't do any of my workouts. I did a lot of walking with my dog because he has to get walked a lot. So I got my 10,000 steps in every day, but during those 10 days, I gave my body a rest and didn't work out. So that's the only thing I changed. Otherwise, I went back to work the next week. I worked full-time as a nurse back then. I work part-time now, but I was constantly on my feet as a nurse. I do 10-hour shifts in the OR. So went back to work the next week, resumed my duties as a landlord, obviously, and got my 10,000 steps in every day. So life kind of went on for me as normal. I had good energy, like I said. I had a good appetite. I ate as I normally did. Tried to incorporate all fertility-friendly foods into my diet as usual, but I had no symptoms. I literally had no symptoms those 10 days. I wasn't nauseous. I didn't have any cramping. I didn't have any bleeding. So the cramping and the bleeding apparently are good signs during those 10 days. Now I don't know this 100% for sure, but what I am hearing from other people is that if you have some cramping, not a lot, but some cramping during those 10 days, that's a good sign that the uterus is accepting the embryo and the embryo is attaching into the uterus. And some spotting is a good sign that the embryo is latching onto the uterus. I'm hearing that those are good signs. I'm not an expert, but I had none of that. So by the end of the 10 days, I was convinced the transfer did not work. I was convinced I wasn't pregnant. I had convinced myself that it hadn't worked. I had made myself believe that the transfer didn't work. I'm not pregnant. So I was telling myself, okay, Brittany, just brace yourself for bad news. It's all good. I got my blood drawn on day 11. So I had my embryo transfer July 1st, and then July 11th, I had my HCG lab draw, and they called me that afternoon. I picked up the phone. I was at work, and I was expecting them to say, oh, sorry, like your levels are low, doesn't look good. No, lo and behold, my HCG levels were through the roof, and my nurse tells me, Brittany, you're very pregnant. And I was shocked because I had already moved on in my mind. I had already made plans for like, am I gonna do this again? Am I not gonna do IVF anymore? Am I okay with not having kids? So I couldn't believe it. And honestly, even though I'm 24 weeks now and I've had my 20-week ultrasound and I had my fetal echo on Monday, I've seen this baby multiple times. It's just, it's so much of a mind game still that like, I'm still pinching myself that like, is this really happening? And it's like, yes, I'm feeling him move. Brittany, it's happening. Everything's, it's just when you go through so much to get to this point, it's kind of mind boggling if it works. So yeah, the rest is history. Pregnancy is going well, but I had no symptoms. So if you're watching this video and you just had your embryo transfer and you're watching all the YouTube videos on people's symptoms after their transfer, do not feel bad. Do not give up hope. Don't lose faith. If you are in the same situation as I was and you're not feeling anything and you're not feeling any symptoms, do not lose hope. Even that little like twinge I felt during my acupuncture session, I don't know what that was. It might have been nothing. But besides that symptom, I didn't have any symptoms at all. Do not worry if you're not feeling anything. Also, do not worry if you are having some cramping and some light spotting, because those are probably good signs as well. So just get through those 10 days or 9 days or however long they're making you wait for your pregnancy test. Do not do a pregnancy test at home. Of course, I can't tell you what to do, but I highly discourage you guys doing a pregnancy test at home. You know, those home pregnancy tests before your lab draw, because you're probably giving yourself artificial hormones, whether it's estrogen pills like I had to do those, those progesterone oil injections, and then I had to do progesterone vaginally. All those artificial hormones flood your body and can give you a false positive on your home pregnancy test. So I did not do a home pregnancy test before the blood draw was done because I didn't want to be in that mental situation. I just put it out of my mind that I wasn't going to do that. I was going to wait for the blood draw. And then I did do a home pregnancy test after the second blood draw because I still wasn't believing my fertility clinic that I was pregnant. So then I did a home pregnancy test probably like 2 weeks after the blood draw, the second blood draw. So at the end of July, when my transfer was July 1st, I probably did a pregnancy test, I think around July 20th or the 24th, because I needed something else to tell me I was pregnant. All right, you guys, so that's it. I had no symptoms. Whew, a lot of talking. Okay, let me tell you guys a little bit about my fetal echo. It was so interesting to me because my background is ICU nursing, and so on adults, we used to do echocardiograms a lot, and I just didn't know it was possible to do it on a baby, like an unborn baby. So it's set up the same way as a 20-week ultrasound laid on the table. Ultrasound tech was right there. They call him an echocardiogram tech. And she just put the probe to my belly and focused in on the heart. So with the 20-week ultrasound, they were measuring everything on the baby, but this time they just focused on the heart and she was measuring everything on the heart. So there's different blood pressures in each chamber. She was measuring the blood flow through the heart. She was looking at each chamber, looking at each leaflet. So cool to see the heart blown up on the screen and my baby's heart beating. It was just very cool. I don't know. It was very magical for me. Again, like the 20-week ultrasound was truly special. This one was just equally as special, just seeing my baby's heart, hearing the heartbeat so clearly. Was very, very cool. And since it was an early morning ultrasound, I think it was at 8:15 in the morning, baby wasn't moving. He's very active in the afternoon and at night. Every time I sit down, basically he's moving, except for in the morning. He's, I think, still sleeping. He's definitely not a morning baby, so should be interesting maybe if he keeps this pattern up. But yeah, so he wasn't moving at all. He was in a good position for the echo tech to measure everything on his heart and see the blood flow through the heart. So it was very cool. So like I said, the fetal echo took about 30 minutes, and then right after that we met with the cardiologist. I don't know his exact title. I think he's like a fetal cardiologist or something like that. He read the echocardiogram and then met with Josh and I right afterwards and explained all of it. Said it looks good, baby's heart looks good. He doesn't see any red flags or anything abnormal. All the heart structures look good and heart's beating as it should. So he said, you know, the study is somewhat limited because of course the ultrasound has to go through my belly and then through the baby and then looking at the heart. So there's some things that they can't image super clearly. So we can't tell like 100% for sure if the heart is like 100% healthy until the baby's born. But for now, there's no red flags and heart looks good. For those of you who don't know, I had to do a fetal echo because this baby is an IVF baby. And the way that the embryo was formed, I always forget this word, but I'll put it right here. I've mentioned it before, but it's where they literally inject the sperm with a needle into the egg, and that's how they form the embryo. Apparently research is showing that if an embryo is formed that way, then the baby is at a little bit higher risk for congenital heart defects. And by a little, I mean like 1%. So it's very minor, but just enough to where my OB wanted me to do a fetal echo. And then he also wants me to do they call it a non-stress test at the end of my pregnancy, starting at 36 weeks. And so I'll go into more of that once I know more details on that. I don't really know much about that yet, but they are keeping a close eye on his heart and function just because he is an IVF baby and the way the embryo was formed at the beginning. One of the doctors we met with a few weeks ago after my 20-week ultrasound was saying that most embryos are formed this way now. All right, so that'll be it for the video. This is kind of short and sweet and really not informative, but I still wanted to make this video because of all the questions I've been getting of how I felt right after my embryo transfer. So not very exciting at all. As always, thank you so very much for all your guys' love and support. And I'm still getting congratulations from you guys on my pregnancy. It has been a journey. Those of you who are going through your own IVF journey right now, stay with it. Don't give up. I never thought this would be successful for me. I never thought I would have my own kids. Lo and behold, it worked, and I'm still pinching myself. So you just never know what's gonna happen. Stay in the game, stay with it, even though it is so difficult. I love hearing from you guys, so leave comments down below. Also, I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna do for the next video, so if you have any suggestions on that, let me know. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it because it does really help support my channel, and always remember to be kind to yourself.